So it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the Saudi Soccer Show the global head of sports, entertainment, and culture for EssenceMediacom, my good friend, Misha Sher. Misha, welcome to the Saudi Soccer Show.
Nick, good to be with you. Good to be with you.
So I'm going to go back. 15 years, and you made an appearance on this show called Fox Football Phone-In with myself and my co-host. And you lobbed this thing out there. You said there's going to be a Super League. And we all went, Misha, what are you talking about? You're out of your mind. Well, 12 years later, there was an attempt at a Super League. I'm wondering, is this the new incarnation of the Super League? What is going on with the Saudi Pro League?
Well, you're right. I did say that about 15 years. I think it was maybe even more. I think it might have been 2007, 2008, but it was around that time. But what I saw, well, like what I could foresee happening at that time is that there were a lot of people, particularly from the U.S. at that point in time, that we didn't have the investment from the Middle East yet, saw football, global football, as an opportunity, as a really under leveraged asset. Let's just call it that in a business sense. I saw a lot of people get involved who didn't particularly have football background or particular interest in the game, but perhaps have done well in business. So what it said to me at the time is that these people, and there will be more of them, are looking at something that they could potentially grow. See where there's a sport or competition that is nowhere near reaching its commercial potential, and they're going to get involved. And there are enough of these guys at the table, then we might see all sorts of things. I mean, you mentioned Super League. I talked about at the time also the possibility of getting rid of. I mean, I think they're connected. The promotion and relegation. I mean, that is the Super League, right? I said you'll get 13 of these guys in the Premier League. Who's to say they're not going to do away with relegation? I mean, they're coming from an environment where it's a monopoly. They don't understand this environment of risk, right? All of a sudden you can drop down like Leeds and not come back for 15 years. So that's not a good business environment. Now, fast forward 15 years, we're in this environment now where Saudi are signing players left, right, and center, some big players, some big money. Is this a Super League? I don't know, but I do think that what will eventually happen again over the coming years is that this is going to go beyond the Saudi Pro League, because they're not just investing in something they can watch themselves. They want to be able to play against Real Madrid and Barcelona and Manchester United and all the big clubs around the world. It's only a matter of time. Don't know when. I don't know if it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but I can assure you that these guys are not just building a competition for their own audience.
Well, we saw probably 6-7 years ago, the Chinese Super League made a big play, and they opened the wallets, they threw the cash, once again, signing big name players, and it failed spectacularly. Do you think there's a chance that the same thing could happen to the Saudi Pro League, or is there just too much will, too much geopolitical at stake in this particular play?
Good question. No, I don't think there's anything. I don't think we have anything to worry about with the Saudi Pro League. I mean, this is with China. You had an individual who head of the party who decided that he wanted football to be a focal point of what they're doing. It wasn't part of a broader. I don't think it was part of a broader vision of what China wanted to do on a global stage. It's a very different story when it comes to Saudi. If you think about what they're doing outside of football, they're bringing some of the biggest sporting events, whether that's boxing or football or Formula One, athletics. They want to become a hub for global sport, and they want to rival their regional rivals, Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Qatar now. And let's not forget, this is a government that wants to become more accepted. This is a country that wants to be seen as as sort of up with the times. Let's just say that. It's a very young population. We're talking about 30 million people. It's not a huge population, but 70%, I think, somewhere around 70% are under 30. So this is a very young population. These young people are really into their sport. And I think MBS understands that. He knows that it's as much about his own preservation as it is about sort of building something that meets the expectations of the a large proportion of their population, which is to be entertained. That's why they're bringing some of the biggest sporting music events, biggest acts, restaurants and all these other chains to the kingdom. They're building things that we can't even fathom there. So I don't think it's a flash in the pan kind of thing, and we'll see this for years to come.
Now, you mentioned MBS, and obviously he's certainly got some influence with PIF, the Public Investment Fund. So that brings me to the league itself. Obviously, there's 4 teams that are just very well funded. Does that change the integrity of the league, or do you think that it's now an 18-team league? Is it like any team has a chance to win it, or are we looking at, and you mentioned the word monopoly, a monopoly between 4 or 5 clubs?
Yeah, look, I think looking at the recruitment so far, it's difficult to see how any of these other teams outside of the ones that are recruiting all the players have any chance of winning. It's just not, you might get an odd result here and there, but over the course of the season, you're not going to be able to compete against those teams. So I'm not really sure what the longer term strategy is in terms of recruitment. But if you want, you live in the States, you know how it works with sports there. You know why sports succeeds. It's because there is that jeopardy, right? It doesn't quite work historically. It's not the same in other countries because of the way that football, for example, developed in this country. But in the U.S., you could see why the different sports work so well, because from one year to the next, any team can win. From 1 week to the next, any team. It's very difficult to build that sort of dynasty. And what that means is that keeps people interested, keeps networks interested, keeps sponsors. There's that level of, you need to have jeopardy in sport to win, to build a product that people want to consume. So, and I think that, they're on that journey. They're going to get things wrong along the way, but I can assure you that they're in this for the long haul and they'll get it right.
Let's talk about money. The money that these players and these clubs are offering other clubs. I mean, the latest is Mo Salah. And Liverpool have said, we are not going to sell. The Saudi transfer window closes, I believe, on Thursday. When they are offering in the region of $200 million, how hard is it for Liverpool to say no to that?
Well, very hard considering the player we're talking about is 31, right? I mean, he's a great player. Let's make no mistake about it. He's been great for Liverpool, but you could argue that his best years are not in front of him. They're probably behind him. We'd be lucky if we see him maintain the level that he's been at for the last couple of years. So if someone's offering you that kind of money, that's an opportunity to rebuild. Now, I think one of the reasons why they didn't let him go now is because it's come so late in the window that it just would have been impossible for them to do a deal and replace him without really disrupting their own season. So it just didn't suit them. But do I think that this is going to be back on the cards in January? Yeah, I think it will. I think also it's important to know that a lot of the numbers, and I know people on the ground, a lot of the numbers that are being mentioned in terms of salaries and the transfer are just not true. Right. So a lot of this, I don't know where people get them and they start and it just gets picked up and repeated. And I'm not saying the numbers aren't big, but they're not in many instances. You get these memes, Neymar's coming and he's getting paid X amount per minute per day. Those things are often not true. But having said that, yes, they are getting offers that they're not going to get anywhere else, particularly at the point in their careers where they are, right? So some of these guys are in their late 20s or early 30s or mid 30s. That, it seems like you can't really blame them from wanting to do that. Can't blame Jordan Henderson, having won the Premier League and Champions League, having had a great career, to want to do a couple of years in Saudi if the money is what it is. I think we'd both do that ourselves.
If we ranked, kind of last question here, if we ranked the top 5 leagues in the world, would we say the Premiership is number 1?
Yes.
La Liga number 2?
Yeah. But
Bundesliga number 3?
Yeah.
Serie A number 4?
Yeah.
What's number 5?
Good question. I don't know. I think we probably have a few that are I think League Guy's probably still number 5 for the moment. But I think in not too distant future, you're going to have potentially MLS, the way it's going, the players it's attracting. I think it's just a matter of time before MLS is in that conversation. And who's to say it won't be the Saudi league? At the end of the day, people want to watch the best players, and if they can attract the best players, which they will, because you might have a player, Juan Mata or someone like that, who says, I'm not going to go there and I'll go to Japan. But that's an exception rather than the rule. I think most players, there's no loyalty in this game. The sort of money they're being offered, at the end of the day, it's a career, and it's a short career for many. You can get injured and so on. So I think they will continue to attract top players. And then when you have enough of them, and hopefully they will get spread out across the league, so you actually have a good league, people will tune into that. Now, it's, for the moment, they're not in any international competition, so it's just a domestic league. So I think the next step for them will be playing in sort of club World Cups and trying to get. They're already selling their television rights here. They're probably selling television rights in the US. The priority will be to elevate the profile of the league and their teams. I mean, you and I will be sitting here in 2-3 years' time, and maybe we're not going to be talking about number 5. We might be talking about number 3 or 4. So who knows?
You are a visionary, Misha. There's no two ways about it. You see football. You see football in the present, but you also see football in the future. You did predict a Super League. Now, that Super League, though, you kind of predicted would be, European. How many years away is this World Super League? Because it's coming. I mean, there's no two ways about it. The world is getting smaller. The distances remain the same, but the travel is getting quicker. How many years before we have the World Super League?
I would say between 5 and 7 years. Wow. It's not going to happen in the short term, I don't think. But I think it will happen. I think it was just, as you say, there are lots of things that are at play here. A lot of the sort of traditions that we've come to in this country or in some other countries we come to like and expect. I think those things evolve with time. Technology has a lot to do with that. When you talk about, when you actually think about the underlying reasoning for the Super League, right? Put sort of some of the financial motivations aside. One of the main drivers behind this was the fact that a lot of these teams, in Spain and Italy, realized Juventus. They realized that they can only really speak to a tiny proportion of their fans, in the construct that they're in now. But they realize that the world is small, right? Or is getting smaller, and their ability to tap into a lot of these different markets by changing the construct of what they're doing now is significant. The upside is big. Now, the way they went about it was wrong, and they didn't manage that well. But I think they'll come back, and I think they'll come back in a different way. And they'll think through how to get all the different stakeholders on board. But yeah, it's probably inevitable, especially when you have the Saudi league and doing what they're doing. These guys they're not going to invest that kind of money to be playing to their own audiences. They're going to want to play in Madrid. They're going to want to play in London. So, and you and I both know that the American owners would be all about that. So, yeah, let's see if I'm right about that.
Misha Sher, if people want to get a hold of you, where's the best place they can look you up?
They can find me on probably on Instagram. I've taken myself off Twitter. It wasn't healthy. So Misha_Sher7 is the best place to find me. You can find me on, that's probably the best place.
Misha, thank you so much. And thank you from the Saudi Soccer Show. We'll speak to you later.
It's good to be with you. Thanks, Nick.